Are you trying to figure out where to find the best views in Grand Teton National Park? With so many overlooks and stunning spots, it can be really hard to know the best things to see in Grand Teton National Park in the time that you have available. If you're planning a first-time visit to the park and are hoping to find the best views and prioritize the most scenic spots, then this is for you. Hi, I'm James Ian, and I've written numerous guides and published several itineraries for the park. And in today's episode, I'm going to share my favorite Grand Teton must-see spots. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe right now. If you're watching or listening somewhere else, follow my podcast to get the episodes as they come out. There are so many incredible views in the park, and you'll love photographing Grand Teton National Park. Whether you're an avid photographer with all the gear and the patience to wait for the perfect light, or you just want to take some envy-inducing snaps for your Instagram account, I've got you covered. We'll look at all the best views in the park so that you'll know exactly where to go and that you won't go home only to discover an amazing view on someone else's Instagram account. Be sure to stay to the end where I'll be sharing my favorite viewpoint. It's one of the most iconic views in the park. Let's take a look right now.
Welcome to National Parks Collecting with James Ian, the national park expert. He's here to help you have the best national parks trips ever. Get tips, discover hidden gems, and learn all you need to know. This is your path to collecting national parks experiences, memories, and maybe even a stamp or two.
So what are the best views in Grand Teton National Park? First up is Mormon Row. With its picturesque barns and other historic buildings, this is an essential stop on the trip to the area and one of the best places in the park for panoramic views of the mountains. Mormons moved in to settle the area back in the 1890s, and unlike most settlers at the time, rather than setting up isolated homesteads, they created a community. There were 27 houses at its peak, along with barns, sheds, and a complex system of irrigation channels that they dug themselves. The entire site was added to the National Register of Historic Places as an historic district back in 1997. The history is interesting, but the area is most famous for two picturesque barns, and most people come here to take their own version of the classic Grand Teton barn photo. There's two different barns. There's the T.A. Moulton Barn, which is, I think, the most photographed barn in America. And there's the John Moulton Barn. The T.A. Moulton Barn has the lopsided point on the roof, and the John Moulton Barn, also beautiful, is a bit more symmetrical. For the best photos of the barns, I recommend going in the morning when the light is better. There's a spot right in front of the T.A. Moulton Barn, just a little bit off to the left near the fence. You'll see a spot where the grass is worn. This is where the classic shot is taken from. And you'll see the mountains in the back. So they're a little more distant view, but it's sort of this panoramic view with the barn in the foreground. Another really famous viewpoint in Grand Teton National Park is the Snake River Overlook. Very little has changed since the famous photographer Ansel Adams took his iconic Snake River photo back in 1942. There's a few more trees there which block a bit of the river, but even with the trees, the view is still stunning. And it's one of the best spots for the sunrise. Also the sunset. Sunrise is my favorite because the sun's behind you, but it's shining on the mountains and creates this really beautiful glow. You'll see the overlook is slightly elevated. It looks down onto the river below, which, true to its name, snakes around several bends. In the foreground are some aspen trees that will start to turn golden right at the beginning of September, so fall hits early here. And then below them are some evergreens around the river, and then the Teton Ranges stretching in the horizon. This is a good place for a wide-angle lens to capture the beauty of it. I really like it at sunrise, but it's also a really great place for the sunset. When you do that, just a tip, most people do leave the second that the sun dips behind the mountains, but actually the sky lights up with all of the brilliant colors a little while later. So if you're going there, I recommend staying a little bit and then seeing the color show as the clouds turn pink and orange a little bit after the sun has set. For an even more panoramic view, it's hard to beat another of the most beautiful places in the park, which is the summit of Signal Mountain. From Jackson Lake Overlook, you can see the mountains in the background, but you also look down upon Jackson Lake in the foreground. The Signal Mountain isn't super high, but it is high enough to give this kind of aerial perspective of the scenery. There's two ways to get to the top of Signal Mountain. The road is the easiest way. It winds up the top, but you can also hike up the top if you wanted. As you drive up, there are actually two different overlooks. The Jackson Lake Overlook looks over Jackson Lake in the mountains. The lookout at the very top actually doesn't look in that direction. The Signal Mountain Overlook faces the other way and looks over Antelope Slats and the Gros Ventre Mountains. It's still a lovely view, and honestly, I think if it was anywhere else, you'd probably take a million photos. Here it does suffer a little bit in comparison with the dramatic Teton Range in the opposite direction. But if you're there in the afternoon, it's still very pretty, and the light is actually better facing that direction in the afternoon, unless you're there right at the sunset, I guess. Now, I mentioned Jackson Lake from the overlook, but another famous view in Grand Teton National Park is the view of Jackson Lake. Jackson Lake is the largest lake in the national park. It's almost 15 miles long, and it has more than 15 islands dotted along its length. Interestingly, although it is a natural lake, it was actually made much larger when it was dammed in the early 1900s. Its western shore is the start of the mountains, and it can only be accessed by boat. However, there are several small settlements along the eastern shore, including Signal Mountain and Coulter Bay. The lake's very popular for boating, for fishing, swimming, and other water sports, but it's also a great place just to enjoy the views there. Because it's located right on the edge of the mountains, anywhere along its length provides fabulous views. Although I will say, I think the southern half is better because the mountains start to peter out the further north that you go. You can take your own boat or rent a boat there and enjoy a lazy day on the water enjoying the views. You could also rent a kayak and spend a more energetic time rowing around surrounded by the incredible scenery. You could laze on one of the beaches. You could go swimming while gazing up in the mountains. You could take a cruise to really soak it in, or a fishing trip. Or you could just spend a relaxed afternoon and evening on the porch or a window-side table at the Tapper Grill or Peaks Restaurant at the Signal Mountain Settlement. Lots of options for enjoying the views there. The next one is a bit of a cheat because it's not an actual viewpoint, but I have to include it here, and that is the views that you see from the hiking trails. The other viewpoints in this list are specific viewpoints and they're accessible by road. However, just sticking to the roads means that you're missing out on so many other spectacular views. To get a different perspective, you really do have to go in amongst the peaks. You can hike into Cascade Canyon, it's my favorite hike in the park, or any of the other incredible hikes in Grand Teton, such as Paintbrush Canyon, around String Lake, around Jenny Lake or Taggart Lakes, many more. On these hikes, you can see waterfalls cascading down the side of the canyon walls. There's secret alpine lakes nestled at the bottom of the steep cliffs, which themselves are topped with year-round glaciers. There's mirror-like reflections of craggy peaks in the picture-perfect lakes. And you have great chances of seeing moose and other wildlife framed by the majestic mountains. It's really worth it if you can. I know not everybody can. We're halfway through. Before we look at my 5 other favorite views in Grand Teton, if you're watching this on my @National Parks Collecting YouTube channel and you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. It really does help. Next up is Jenny Lake. Now, Jenny Lake is the second largest lake in the park. Highlights include hiking around the lake. You can do the Jenny Lake Loop Trail, or you can take the boat, which is either a shuttle across the lake to one of the many trails, or you can take a scenic cruise. On calm days, the lake perfectly reflects the mountains, making this another of the best viewpoints in the park. The lake is right at the base of the mountain, so it's a different view from some of the other places such as Signal Mountain or Schwabacher Landing or Snake River Overlook, which are a bit more distant. Here, you're up close and personal with the mountains. They're right there in front of you. The main access point where you access the boat and start the trails is near the Visitors Center, where there's also a campground and a large parking lot. Another famous viewpoint in Grand Teton National Park, actually several, are the turnouts on the Jenny Lake Loop Drive. So these are also views of Jenny Lake, but very specifically on the Scenic Drive, which is a 4-mile one-way road that loops from the inner road and has several turnouts with some of the best views in the park. A highlight is the Cathedral Group turnout, where you can clearly see the Cathedral Group of peaks across the plains. This is a group of classic pyramid-like glacier-topped alpine mountains, which are some of the tallest peaks in the range. They include Grand Teton, Mount Owen, Middle Teton, South Teton, and Tiwanout Mountain. You're also on the drive past the trailhead to String Lake. It's worth getting out and seeing the lake with the mountain behind you for another beautiful view. And then you'll come to Jenny Lake Overlook, where there are more stunning views. You'll see Cascade Canyon and the Cathedral Group across the lake. As with other viewpoints, the light for photography is best in the morning here. All right, we have 3 more to go. Another really beautiful view in Grand Teton National Park is Schwabacher Landing. This is almost directly east of Grand Teton, and it's part of the Snake River, where the surrounding area is flat enough to have a boat and a raft launch. As you turn off the main highway, you'll follow a short dirt road to a parking lot at the area, and from there are several easy walks along the river. There's a beaver dam, there's abundant bird life, moose are often seen here in the evenings and the mornings. You might see bears there as well, and it's really considered one of the best chances of seeing a moose in shallow water, maybe water dripping off its chin with the mountains behind, like an iconic view. And on a calm day, this is another place where you can see the mountains reflected in the still waters of the slow-moving Snake River. Another area of the park where there are really beautiful views is the Moose-Wilson Road. This is an 8-mile scenic road between the tiny towns of Moose and Wilson, hence the name, I suppose. The road is narrow and windy. It follows the Snake River, but it's incredibly scenic. There are turnouts to see the Tetons, but this one actually isn't quite so much about the mountains as a place where you can see the different natural environments and the wildlife. You'll pass marsh areas where you can see beaver dams, you might see pelicans and blue herons. It's also a really good place to see moose in the wetlands, bears in the woods, and bison in the fields as you drive past. So there are multiple opportunities for beautiful views of animals and nature behind them. The road is closed between November and mid-May and may be closed for grizzly bear activity at other times of the year. So far, we've seen 9 incredible views in the park, or areas where you can see incredible views. There's just one more left. But before we look at my favorite viewpoint in the park, you may be thinking, these views all look amazing, and I want to see them all, but how can I combine them all into an actual schedule for my trip? The park is popular. The views are spread along the entire length of the park, and you want to be at each one at the right time of the day for the best light and the best chance of seeing wildlife when you're there. You don't want to spend time waiting around for a parking spot or miss the light because you couldn't find parking. These were some of the main things that I took into account when I created my itineraries for Grand Teton National Park. There are 1, 2, and 3-day options. Now, it's hard to see all 10 viewpoints in one day, but with the 3-day itinerary, you can see them all. You can find a link to the itineraries page at the top of the description box below, but we can take a quick moment right now. The itineraries start with a park overview and useful information, and then there's a detailed schedule for each day, and then all sorts of details that you need for each activity. There's hiking and driving descriptions and maps. There's alternate activities in the same part of the park. So if you're traveling with people who want to do different things, there's timings, there's tips, and more. With one of these itineraries, you'll know exactly what to do and how to connect them all in a way that makes the most sense, so that you're in the right place at the right time. Without this itinerary, people often find themselves struggling to coordinate their time, to be in the right place at the right time, and to see and do all that they want in the time that they have. The itineraries will help take away the overwhelm and give you all the information that you need in one spot, so that you don't need to worry about missing out on any of the highlights or stress about how to put everything together into a schedule that makes the most sense. Just follow the link in the show notes below. Now, as promised, what's my number 1 viewpoint in Grand Teton National Park? Well, my favorite view in Grand Teton is Oxbow Bend. This is a U-shaped bend in the Snake River. At the bend, the river is wide and slow, and in calm weather, especially early in the morning, it's often like a mirror, reflecting Mount Moran perfectly. I've visited in the afternoon, and it's still beautiful, and there are plenty of birds, including herons and even pelicans. However, Oxbow Bend is especially beautiful for the sunrise, and if you're lucky, you'll see that perfect reflection. It is, in one word, breathtaking, which is why it's one of the most photographed views in the park. It's also a popular place for wildlife. It's very possible to see moose, river otters, bears, black bears, even grizzly bears there. If you want help planning your trip, check the links in the description box below. There's a bunch of planning and booking resources that you can use to plan and book your trip. And keep watching my videos to get even more help so that you can have the best national parks vacation ever. And if you want to get notified about the next episode, subscribe and click below.